Hey, it's Chris, Liege Games. Let's do this. I'm going to rank and give you a short feeling, description, review, impression of all 14 different games that I played in the month of March. A little bit of everything here. 14 games. Now, 14 games, 3 of which were kids' games, which I'm going to sort of do a little bit differently, but I'm going to throw them in there as well. And, especially for you parents out there, a little snapshot of that, because I'm also going to do my kids' games recommendations sometime in the near future as well. So, that's it. In case you're keeping track, my 10 by 10 is not going nearly as well, but my get everything on my shelves played and not have a shelf of shame or shelf of opportunity at all by the end of 2022, that is going really well when I can knock out almost 20% in 1 month, 1 weekend. So, without further ado, let's go to it. Number 14, Animal Upon Animal. You've probably seen it everywhere. I mean, it's actually a really tough game in terms of dexterity sometimes, if you're playing it by the actual rules, which me and my kids don't. We just take turns semi-rolling the dice and just take all from a collective pile. We play it cooperatively instead of competitively. And even then, we have trouble getting all of the animals out there sometimes because some of the dexterity of my middle child is not the best. But this is a great intro learner game, just as getting kids involved and getting them interested in something tabletop-wise. You can start this as young as like even 3. It's great. It's cheap. It's worth it. That's all I'm going to say for number 14. Number 13, also, the second kids game on the list. This is Valley of the Vikings. Animal Upon Animal is the 17th ranked children's game. This is the 32nd ranked kids game. You can also see right down here in the bottom of this graphic, this is a Kinderspiel nominee from 2019. So not only is it actually ranked well, it's actually a decently fun game. There's actually some strategy in it, but the kids get to use dexterity. The gist of it is you have your little cardboard cutout guy here. He flicks this ball across this board from your corner, trying to knock over one of or more of the colored pedestals. The colored pedestals move your characters up here at the top of the board. When somebody gets all the way to the end and splashes into the water, wherever everyone else is along this track gets the bonus and the rewards, including stealing coins from other people. And so not only then do you get to, after you knock them over, the next person gets to put up whatever ones they're knocked over and arrange them, then you get to hit a little plastic ball across the table. And kids love that. There's a reason. There's actually some strategy, and they start to pick it up rather quickly. Well, I want to move your guy across the dock here, so I need to position it so I only hit your guy, and then I'm going to try and hit your guy. And, again, which order do I move the guys in? Because if there's a guy in front of you, it leapfrogs potentially. Again, it's a game that my kids periodically request. I'm not always the biggest fan of it, but it plays rather quickly, and it's kind of fun at the same time, even for older ages. I will say, though, with these boats, these cardboard boats you have to put together, they're 4 pieces, and they don't always stay together the best, and they're just kind of unnecessary. It gives a thematic incorporation, but realistically right now, I don't even like putting them together. I just play without them because you can just put the pile of coins next to you and it works just as fine. But that's why it's on this list, and that's why it's at the end here. Just, I need to talk about it. The last kids game is going to be higher up, and there's various reasons for that. Next up, number 12, and this is Earth Under Siege Flashpoint. Again, nothing wrong with this game whatsoever. I think it's just a lot heavier of a dungeon crawl than I was expecting. This is probably the most Metal Gear Solid you'll ever see on a game. This is like a heavy, heavy version of V Commandos or Assassin's Creed. You have a lot of different aspects and a lot of different nuance, a lot of different rules, a lot of different overhead that goes into the game. And there is a ton of strategy. A ton of tactical nature in this by the sheer nature of me comparing it to those games. I mean, there should be, right? I mean, just with the characters, you're going to be rolling dice depending on the stats, depending on whether or not you want to hit them or block. And you have the use of sort of Gloomhaven-esque cards on your turn, where you can either take the top or the bottom when you play them. The enemies itself are very unique, but it's a roll to hit you. They automatically hit you back. And so stealth is very important. Taking them by surprise is very important. And the asymmetry, even within the characters, where you have 3 copies of one character, this bottom ability on the bottom of the card there is completely different. So each time it spawns, it's going to be different in how it acts. Plenty of unique items that you're going to be picking up along the way. And what you can't see here, though, I tried to find a blown up picture of it, but I couldn't, is on the player boards themselves. There is a action space and a used space, and you have 3 different tokens of actions, 3 different tokens of move, and you can take as many of those 6 as you want per turn, but you only refresh 3 of them, so you have to be very careful how that works. That's also your health. So if you get damaged, you lose the ability to do one of those actions. You get to choose which one, but it's going to limit you, making you weaker, which is a really, really cool mechanic, and I hope other dungeon crawls incorporate it, but ultimately just too heavy for me to hit any regular rotation or with the frequency that it would need, especially with my own gaming group. So that's number 12. Number 11 is Pathways. Again, a very easy, very straightforward, lighter, more accessible, even easier to get to the table, cheaper version of Crokinole, if you will. Whereas instead of you just trying to shoot for the hole in the center, you're trying to shoot for this back line on your opponent's side, but as your pieces fill in the paths along the way, because it's hard to get there in the first place, it's going to give you an easier path to get there. Person who gets the most of your tokens on their back line wins that round, and you can play again. But it's relatively straightforward. You can get a playmat, you can get a wooden bamboo board. It's crowdfunding right now. Again, comparatively to the price of Crokinole and the ease of play really makes it something that I was surprisingly enjoyable, and my wife enjoyed it too, so that's saying something. That is number 11. Number 10, Splash and Spells. Not really area control, but it gives you the area control vibe, only in a Dice Throne-esque way. Not a whole lot of picture on Board Game Geek, but you have asymmetric heroes, and it reminds me of Dice Throne because the heroes all have difficulty ratings, anywhere from 1 star to 5 star, and it's more of a skirmish game on a 3D Dice Throne-esque map. And you come with 6 core heroes that are going to be all asymmetric, and you use 3 stats on them after you draft them to slowly upgrade. Now you can see here, this thing is going way too fast for you to make out what's happening, but the gist of it is that there's a variable initiative order, and you have cubes that are going to be sort of action selection, kind of worker placement, but not really. And you're also going to have access to cards that you can use as your main source of attacks. But when you play them, they get put under your board themselves, and then you can utilize the bottom half of the card as an action for one of those 2 actions that I said. You only play 7 rounds, so your actions are very limited, and all you're trying to do is knock out the other person. Now, there are barriers, there are obstacles on the board, there are encounters on the board that are going to change it up as well, which I was kind of mixed on. I kind of liked it in a way, and I kind of didn't. I think it was just trying to do a little bit too much, but the characters, especially some of the more complicated ones, are... Oh, there's my video. Anyway, the more complicated ones were really cool with some of the asymmetry. And so, again, it was just something completely different. You can see some of the characters here. This is the Paladin with a 2-star rating. But everything up from the 3-star, the 4-star, and the 5-star here are really cool. And these are the 3 stats, but they all give different abilities. And you can upgrade those abilities as you go. But ultimately, it's just whoever knocks out the most people wins at the end of the game. But again, if you're not a fan of elimination, well, no need to worry, because it's, not elimination. You just come right back after you get knocked out. That's why it's number 10. Number 9 is a game that you've never heard of, and this is Anna's Roundtable, the Fire Emblem board game. I'm going to have a full review coming out, hopefully in the next week or so. It might actually already be out, depending on the timing of this video. This is an unofficial adaptation of Fire Emblem, the board game. Only it's done as potentially a 1 versus 1 or a 1 versus boss mode. And it brings a few different elements to the skirmish style 1 versus 1 that we haven't seen, because you're traveling or traversing across a map. You have 3 unit slots available to you, which means you can have 3 units on the board at any time, but you have 4 colors of units, a gray unit that can be manipulated between each of these slots depending on what else you have going on. So if your hand does not have one of the colors, which can happen, you can use the gray in the empty slot instead. Now, there are a ton of cards, and you'll notice that all of these have a different artistic style because they got different artists for almost every card. They fan-sourced it, they've self-published, and it's being delivered to backers in the past couple weeks. And so it's doing a few things differently because it's ultimately a capture the flag game, but you also get bonus victory points for knocking out the other person. There are a lot of keywords, and that's sort of the biggest overhead issue with it that can be both a blessing and a curse, just with what you need to know and how they interact and being able to know your own, let alone the opponent's. And so, again, it does a great job of, the Fire Emblem implementation. But again, it's more of a question of, is this going to be right for you? And you know, it's a little bit more of a premium product because it was self-published. So again, interesting game. Number 9. Number 8, Tidal Blades, actually. Again, not because I disliked anything about it, but because it's a campaign game, and campaign games are tough for me right now as I'm trying to purge things. Campaign games, especially with Tidal Blades, despite how cool this looks, it's just hard to link them together. I have a hard time doing that. I played my whole scenarios solo, two-handed solo though. And so that's the biggest concern I have for all of these games right now, which is why I'm ultimately probably not going to back it on crowdfunding. Again, they're doing some really cool, innovative things here with the managing of your resources and the grid that you have that you're balancing on, that you put cards down on it and you take either the row or the column of the bonuses that it gives you, and it changes the initiative order based on the card you play. And your initiative order can change each round because the enemies are going to have initiative order as well. And it uses the Gloomhaven style map grid that we're seeing here. You can see the grid of cards with the bonuses in the background there vaguely. A few upgraded dice on one of the stretch goals. And they separated the miniatures out on the crowdfunding page so you can get it with or without if you're like me who prefers standees. Again, I would argue that it's probably better to get it during the crowdfunding campaign, given some of the unlocks, unreveals, or stretch goals that they've done. But ultimately, it's a question of, do you have enough space, time, and table space for a legacy game, or not a legacy game, but a campaign game, which is upgradable, which, again, it's a much easier one than a lot of other games. I will say that, and I think that is a huge positive, because the overhead is not there, but the upgradable characters and the paths that they can take and the slight deck building mechanic are unique. And they work, and they are very, very solid. I have no questions whether or not this is going to be a good game. This is going to be a very good game. It's just whether or not it's a very good game for you. So there you go. Number 7, Monster Pit from Elzra. Again, this was something completely different in the Catacombs world, where you are drafting from a main board of many different districts onto potentially your heroes on either the attacking side or the defending side. Akin to tower defense, but it is definitely not tower defense. You are heavy dice rolling, because the thing you can barely see in this picture, I'll blow it up here, is that all of these characters have dice at the bottom of their cards, yellow, red, and white, and depending on how you feel or which ones you want to use, if you have more than what you need, you can choose which ones to battle the monster with, to see how many hits you can get, or to see how you do defensively. The monsters are probably the best part about this game, because all of them are so asymmetrically different that when I played it, no two monsters acted alike, and so the strategy has to be completely different. I will say that it probably benefited from playing at the higher player counts, and a couple of the districts or divisions that you can go to in this map right here, they just didn't seem as quite different enough as I would have preferred. Like, almost sort of like Anna's Roundtable, just scaled back just a touch, I felt like would have been more streamlined and just given me more sense of accomplishment. But apart from that, it's easy to get to the table. It's much more streamlined than some of the other Catacombs games, because I think the problems with some of the other Catacombs games, I love them. They're all sitting behind me, or all of Catacombs 3rd edition almost. And it's great. But I also don't have 2.5 hours sometimes to play through that, depending on how fast my group is. You know, that's my bigger concern, and this is much shorter. This is much more streamlined, and it's almost simultaneous when you're buying from one of the decks or one of the places in the town in the first place. So it crowdfunded. I think it's done at the time of me filming this. But otherwise, I mean, again, I love 3rd edition's artwork. It is just, I don't know, I am a big fan. And so this is set in that world, and it just works. It's going to fly under a lot of people's radars, but that's okay. There you go. Monster Pit. Number 7. Number 6. This is the other kids game, Quest Kids. And I'm going to have a video talking about this out shortly, comparing it to a few other of similar weight. And I wish I would have known that they had a expansion for this when it was crowdfunded originally that came with the crowdfunding, but did not come with the copy that I got, because my kids are already clamoring for more. I told my kids that there was an expansion out for this coming on Kickstarter later this month, and they're like, oh yeah, just go buy it, and then we can play it. And I'm like, it doesn't work quite like that. Trying to explain crowdfunding to a 6 and 8-year-old doesn't quite work too well. But the gist of it is that you're just heroes adventuring in this dungeon, And what you're doing is you see this map right here, and it's blown up. It's not great clarity, but you can get the gist. There are squares. And the cards that you have, these dungeons cards right here, you lay them down. All the red ones on the right side, mixing up the green and the gray ones. And essentially all you do is you move your character from one square to the next to whatever's available. And then most of them are going to give you one of these resource cards or multiple resource cards of the purple, the yellow, and the red. It's like magic, sword, and fire or something. I don't know. But anyway, they give you 3 of them. And all you're doing is using those to fight the monsters, because occasionally when you flip one of these cards over, a monster comes out. You have a little quest card that you go and you can cash in, and sometimes you don't have all of these 3 that you need to fight the monsters, and so someone else can loan you one of them, not loan you, give you one of them. And you might go, well, in competitive game, Chris, why would you want to do that? 1, it's a kid's game, so you're teaching your kids to play well with others. Then 2, if they do, and then they get the kind kid card, which probably gives them a better bonus than if they had kept these cards, because at the end, these are worth nothing. Most of these are going to give you stars, which are the victory points. And there's cool gems, and they get to draw from a bag to get bonuses is one of the options. And so again, it's just kid pleasing all around. There's going to be an expansion later this month on crowdfunding. I need to go pick up the other expansion at retail because my kids are a big fan of this. And it's one, and I put it this highly, not because it's better than some of those other games I said previously to this, but because my kids have routinely requested it, especially compared to some screen time that they can get instead. So that weighs a lot for me. Number 5. I talked about this one on my indie games to know. This is Eero. This is a color-based sort of Kamisado where all you're doing is you're taking one of these pieces. I'll blow this up here for you guys. And you're just moving it across, trying to get one of your pieces on the last row of your opponent's. And so this piece right here, this yellow, yellow, blue, it can move on a yellow, and a blue in any combination, in any order, once on a turn. So I could go this yellow, this blue, and then it'd be stuck. But the benefit is on my next turn, if this really is stuck there and it can't go anywhere else, I can take one from my reserve, swap it for this one, and now all of a sudden, maybe I have this is supposed to be a green, dark green, yellow, blue. Well, then I can go dark green, blue, yellow, and I can get all the way back there. And all it is like chess, is that if you land on somebody else's spot, you just replace them. But again, like I said, it's just first one to get to the last row. So it's a lot more thinky than it looks, but that's the whole gist of it right there. The rules are here on the back cover of the box, and the box is literally like, I don't know, this is about maybe 5 by 5 by 4, 5 by 5 by 3 box, and it's great. It's great quality. The designer has a new upcoming game on crowdfunding, abstracty like this as well. So again, great game, very good, very pleased with this. Number 5 on this list, no doubt about it. The other is a crowdfunding right now, is a Japanese import. This is named Bossa. This was also on that list of indie games. It's weird because it shouldn't be as good as it is, and it works because it's a light filler, and it's just counting pips on a dice, essentially, and putting these chips, which are in different pip configurations, on either side of these rows. And it's basically first one to empty their whole stack wins, or get 6 of these rows on a dice. And you have 3 different cards down here that are going to give you different abilities in order to mitigate or change what you've got going on your hand. You can stack on top of a stack that's out there already. You can swap one with your opponent, or you can just discard one. So again, it's great. Again, you're counting white on this side, so you can see 1 white, 2 white, 3 white, 4 whites on this one, 5, then 6, then 7, and then same thing over here. 1 black, 2 black, 3 on the dice, 4, 5, 6, 7. So again, it's crowdfunding right now, and if you're interested at all from a filler standpoint, there are several different levels and how deluxe you want to make it. And again, with all the Japanese imports, if you don't get them on crowdfunding, you're probably not going to be able to get them at all. So check it out. That's why it's number 4. Number 3, Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. I was not expecting to like this game. I'm now backing the expansion bundle on crowdfunding. I'd say it's worth backing on crowdfunding. Worst case scenario, you're probably haggling about $5 worth of difference. And you're going to get a promo set. So, and the upgraded whatever it comes with, the big box, I believe. It's sort of Terraforming Mars meets Race for the Galaxy, only done better for me with a little bit of an engine build. And again, the deluxe resources, the inlaid cards, it just works. I don't know why it works. It does. There's foreign language edition, but it just is a good game. I have no qualms about saying that, and I say that as someone who does not like Terraforming Mars and will never own Terraforming Mars, and I'm completely okay with that. Again, I probably don't need all 3 expansions, but at least 2 of them are seriously interesting to me. 1, the co-op to get my wife to play, and then 2, the other one that's going to add other objectives along the way, other bonuses to give it a little bit more of a feel as you're playing, a little bit more depth. I don't know if I want the 5 to 6 player expansion, but it adds a little something else too, and if I'm going to get it, I'm going to get the promos and the big box and all that stuff. So, yeah, but it's a great game. It's not leaving my collection. It's why it's number 3. Number 2, no surprise, Radlands. As good as advertised. I don't have much play in it, but it's sort of like everything is overpowered and everything that gets played seems overpowered, and then you play something even more overpowered to balance it out. And it's sort of like Epic the Card Game, only much more strategic than Epic the Card Game. And I like it. I haven't gotten half of the nuances that are in there probably, but I can see that it's going to stay in my collection. I just have a retail version. Now, I wouldn't not get a deluxe or super deluxe. At the same time, I paid a third of what the cost is of at least one of those for about 20 bucks. And I'm very happy with it. So I'd love the playmat. That'd be awesome, but I don't need it either. A playmat is probably the only thing missing just to make it a little bit cleaner when you're playing of where everything is. But this is a very elegant game. This is a very fast, potentially, game because it doesn't hold your hand. It's just go, 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 knock, 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 or lose. And it does it in, again, a very different way with resource management each turn that's very limited and the ability to manipulate that slightly, as well as the asymmetry because you're both drawing from the same deck on your turns. So doing something different and doing something new at the same time, and it achieves both from that aspect. And last up, number 1, The Revenge of Fauxzilla, the Loop expansion. Adds 2 new modes, adds 2 new characters, adds a few items. If you thought the game was too easy before, I love this. This is awesome too. The game makes it even harder. We just got trounced the other night playing the Fauxzilla Apocalypse mode. So absolutely trounced. Didn't even make it through the first round of Faux cards. Faux cards, Dr. Faux cards. I have the Faux original base game. So again, 7 Kaiju balls. Yeah, that's a Dragon Ball Z reference. You know, check it out. But also Fauxzilla Apocalypse mode where you have to set these traps for him essentially. See if I can find a picture. Did I mention here as well, you get to play as Dr. Faux? Yeah, you get to play as a good Dr. Faux. Here is the mode. These are traps. So when you play a card with the little symbol in the upper left-hand corner of the item, you get to put a cube on one of these outside ones. And when all 3 are there, the trap is activated. And so you manipulate Fauxzilla as you would an agent. And if he moves onto the trap, you do him a damage. And it has 3 different difficulties. You can start 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. So depending on how hard you want to make it, how many times you have to get him into the trap. And then if you vortex it, then you have to have a 4th. You have to play one of these blank ones, these black hole ones down there as well. So it adds a 4th cube that you have to get onto the traps to set it off. And again, doing a great job. Got absolutely trounced. And there's a picture of Fauxzilla. And it's a cool meeple too. So there you go. Number 1 game of the month that I played. Those are my thoughts. That's it. All 14 games, well, 14 different games that I played this month and my thoughts on them and my ranking of them. What'd you play? What stood out? What didn't stand out to you and why? As always, I'm always interested to hear what it is. And this video next month, like I said in the beginning, April is going to be super long. It's just going to be more and more and more because I've got a few preview copies coming that I got to get played. And I'm just trying to get my shelf of not played games in my collection down so I can see what's staying and what's going because I got too much stuff on top of shelves and on the floor next to me. So there you go. Everything and more than you ever thought I could do in a video. Probably not though. I'm not nearly as good as other people who do these videos. That's why I'm at where I'm at. But I'm happy because I love talking about games. Let me know what you think. What was your standout of the month? Or what was your disappointment of the month? There you go. Those are mine. Stay classy. Have a great day. See you around. Smash that like if you want. Let's YouTube tell other people about my stuff. I got nothing. I'm done.